There is a $2 trick that can completely strip the humidity out of your room for weeks at a time without electricity. It sounds like a scam. It sounds too simple to be true. But strangely, in certain circles, people have been told to stop using it. Most people are out here spending $300 on noisy, electricity-hungry machines. But the solution to your damp, moldy, heavy air nightmare? It's sitting in a cardboard box at your local grocery store. And the industry that profits off your discomfort? They're hoping you never find out how effective this actually is.
If you're tired of being sold expensive fixes for simple problems, hit the subscribe button, because I'm uncovering the things they'd rather keep hidden. The invisible enemy. You know the feeling. You wake up and the air feels heavy, sticky, like you're breathing through a damp cloth. You look at the corner of your ceiling and there it is, a tiny black smudge. That's not just damp, that's a biological takeover. High humidity is a silent killer for your home. It rots your floorboards, ruins your clothes, and triggers respiratory issues you didn't even know you had. We've been conditioned to think the only way to fight it is with expensive tech. Think about the old archives, the basements of ancient libraries, or the storage rooms of world-class museums. They don't all rely on humming compressors and plastic fans. They rely on the fundamental laws of the universe. They use chemistry to do what we try to force with mechanics. The rejected solution. Almost nobody talks about this anymore. Why would they? There's no subscription model for a solution that costs $2. There's no smart app for it. It doesn't connect to your Wi-Fi, and it doesn't need a firmware update. In fact, in some rentals and managed buildings, DIY setups like this are discouraged, not because they don't work, but because spills can damage surfaces. If you look at the energy consumption of a standard refrigerant dehumidifier, you're looking at roughly 280 to 700 watts per hour. Over a month, that's a significant dent in your wallet. But why pay for the movement of air when you can let the air come to the solution? But here's the strange part. This method actually gets stronger as humidity rises. And that changes everything. Most people assume humidity needs to be forced out using machines. But this flips that idea completely. Instead of pushing air around, this method quietly pulls moisture out on its own. No noise, no power, no moving parts. And once you see how much water it collects, it completely changes how you think about the air inside your room. The calcium experiment. The secret isn't a machine, it's a mineral. Specifically, calcium chloride. Now, this won't replace a full dehumidifier in extremely humid climates or large rooms, but for small spaces, bedrooms, or problem corners, it works surprisingly well. It costs just a few dollars for a large bag. It looks like salt. It feels like salt. But on a molecular level, it actively attracts and traps moisture from the air. Most people think of salt as something that just sits there. But calcium chloride is different. It is hygroscopic to an extreme degree. It doesn't just attract moisture, it searches for it. It has a chemical thirst that cannot be quenched until it has physically transformed. How to build the trap? To make this work, you aren't just soaking up water, you are creating a chemical trap. To do this effectively and safely, you need to follow a specific design that allows for deliquescence, the process where a substance absorbs so much moisture from the air that it actually dissolves into a liquid. The biggest mistake people make is putting the crystals in a flat bowl. Once the top layer gets wet, it forms a skin that stops the rest of the crystals from working. You need a gravity drain system. Step 1. The procurement. You cannot use standard table salt, NaCl. While it is hygroscopic, it is not powerful enough to lower the relative humidity of a room significantly. You need calcium chloride, CaCl2. Look for ice melt. Ensure the bag says 90 to 100% calcium chloride or pool hardener. Step 2. The double chamber build. The drainage vessel. Take a plastic bucket, the inner core. Drill approximately 15 to 20 small holes, 3 mm to 5 mm to 5 mm to 5 mm in the bottom. The reservoir. Take a second, slightly larger bucket, the outer shell. This must be airtight to hold the liquid brine. The air gap. Place a spacer, like a brick or a smaller overturned bowl, at the bottom of the outer shell. Place the inner core on top of it. You need a gap so the liquid can drip away from the solid crystals. If the crystals sit in the water they've already collected, the reaction slows down and stops. Step 3. Loading the chemical. Place a coffee filter or a thin mesh at the bottom of the inner bucket to prevent the solid pellets from falling through. Then, pour in your calcium chloride. For a standard bedroom, 2 kg to 3 kg is an ideal starting charge. One warning, the liquid this creates is highly corrosive. If it spills, it can damage wood, metal, and fabrics, so keep it away from pets, electronics, and anything valuable. The science of the hidden power. It's called deliquescence. Calcium chloride has an affinity for water that is almost violent. It will continue to pull moisture from the air until it literally turns itself into a liquid brine. It's physics. It doesn't need a motor. It doesn't need a fan. For small spaces, it can be surprisingly more efficient than cheap electric units that use Peltier heat pumps, which are notoriously inefficient. Peltier units rely on a thermoelectric effect that consumes massive amounts of power to create a tiny cold surface. In contrast, this method uses chemical potential energy. The energy is already stored in the salt's desire to reach a hydrated state. Think about it. An electric dehumidifier is fighting the environment. This $2 method is partnering with it. As the relative humidity in your room rises, the chemical reaction actually accelerates. It works harder when the air is wetter, automatically scaling its performance without a single sensor or circuit board. Why it's banned in plain sight. So, why do some places ban or discourage this? In certain high-end rentals or modern corporate housing, DIY desiccants are often forbidden in lease agreements. Why? Because the brine is corrosive. If you spill this on hardwood, it will pull the moisture out of the wood itself, causing it to warp. But there's a deeper reason. In most cases, it comes down to liability and safety. Spills can cause damage, so many places prefer controlled commercial solutions. They've framed a miracle of chemistry as a hazard, just to keep the status quo. They want you to believe that clean air and dry walls are expensive services provided by corporations, rather than a simple result of understanding the elements. The professional secret, the infinite cycle. Here is the part the industry definitely doesn't want you to know. The brine, the liquid that collects in the bottom bucket, is not trash. In industrial settings, this brine is often collected and regenerated. By heating the liquid brine, you can drive the water back out, turning the liquid back into solid calcium chloride crystals. While this is hard to do safely at home without the right equipment, it proves one thing: the energy is never lost. You're using a tool that is fundamentally more sustainable than a plastic machine designed to break in 3 years. The mistake everyone makes. But wait, before you run to the kitchen, here's the mistake that ruins this for everyone. Most people hear salt and they grab table salt. Don't do that. Table salt reaches a saturation point very quickly and then gives up. You need the industrial grade stuff. And here's the second mistake: airflow. If you tuck your $2 dehumidifier in a closet behind a stack of boxes, it can't breathe. It needs access to the room's circulation. The most successful users place it near a window or in the center of the dampest wall. If you want to supercharge it, place a small 5V USB fan next to the bucket. It will pull the air through the crystals faster than any $200 compact dehumidifier on the market. Imagine walking into your room and the smell is just gone. No more musty scent. Your bed sheets don't feel slightly damp. Your electronics, which are quietly corroding in high humidity, suddenly have their lifespan doubled. It sounds like a dream, but it's just basic chemistry that's been tucked away in the industrial section, so you'll keep buying the consumer version. You've been told that solving your problems has to be expensive. It doesn't. Sometimes, the most powerful solutions are the ones they stop talking about. Go check your hardware store. Look for the white pellets, just a few dollars. That's all it takes to change the air you breathe. Are you going to keep paying the humidity tax? Or are you going to use the secret that's been sitting in plain sight? Try it once. Just once. And you'll never look at humid airs the same way again.